between, going from about average of 10 to 15%. But on the high end, many firms are hitting 30%. So the high end of the range is around 30, and the low end, unfortunately, is around 0. Now, you may remember that when we had you sign up for the webinar today, we asked you to let us know how much profit you had, your net profit on your projects. And what we saw, interestingly enough, where many of you were around that 15, but many of you, I would say more than half of you had 10% or lower as your profit margin, and many of you had between that kind of 10% to 14% level. So even though the average in the industry is 15%, many of you on this session today are experiencing lower profits. So I'm hoping I'll be able to give you some ideas of where to start looking for that money in these 9 areas. We're going to really dig into people, processes, and systems. That's where the money is getting lost. Very often companies try to group that together into one thing, and we're going to split it out and show you how to kind of dig into each of those 9 areas a lot deeper. So you're going to be assessing your own business, and I'm hoping that'll provide you a lot of insight and a way to go back to within your company and start having conversations that are going to lead to improving those areas. And I want to, at the end, we're going to take about 1 minute, and I promise no more than that, to tell you what we do and how we help companies find increased profit in each of the 9 areas. So 1 minute at the end, and an opportunity to have a quick call with us to see if you want to learn more. So the first thing I want you to do on your piece of paper, on your worksheet, is to write down what would you do if you had 1 to 5% more profit. For some of you, that might be $10,000. Some of you, it might be $100,000. Some of you in the larger firms, it could be millions of dollars in additional bottom line profit. Well, what would that mean to your company? And the reason that I ask this question is if you're going to go back, if you want to get anything done in your firm, you really have to be able to articulate why you need that money. The other day I had a conversation with someone, and he said, well, we don't focus on profit because we want to do good in the world. We want to have green, we want to have a more green environment, and we want to give back to charities. And I said, well, you have to have profit in order to do those great things that you want to accomplish. So be able to tie back the profit to what it is your firm is all about. And so being able to articulate that is really important, and I'd love for all of you to think about that. What does this mean to you? It's not just money in the bank, it's what you can do with that money that's really important, and how you communicate that to your staff, within your leadership team, and even with your clients is really, really important. So go ahead and write that on your paper. Good way to get started, to think about your mission. So the first thing is that everything that you do in your firm revolves around your culture. The way that your employees behave every day, everything that they do is reflective of the values of your firm and what your firm talks about every day. So if you go and look at your website, if you go look at the messaging that you have in your marketing, and if you go look at what you say to your employees when you're having your staff meetings, what are you talking about? These are some words on the screen, like we're professional, or we have high quality, we deliver excellent service, we're smart, we're innovative, we have great solutions to your problems, we're committed, we're knowledgeable, we're dependable, we're reliable, we give great service. What is it you say? And you have to realize that when you look at the screen here, at these words, which are typical of words that A&E firms use, the word profitable isn't on there. And that is a huge issue, because if you're not talking about money and you're not talking about profit with your team and even with the outside world, then it's not a focus of everyone's attention. It's not what they're thinking about every day and what their behavior is focused on. So your culture is what really dictates how profitable you are. And what we find with the typical architecture, engineering, design, environmental firms is that focus on profitability is not a major part of what they talk about. Maybe once a month, you get some financial reports and you talk about it and you kind of wring your hands and say, oh, why aren't we more profitable? But it's not something that you're focused on every day, every week, and a clear message to your employees about why it's so important to be financially successful. And believe me, it is very important to your success going forward, to your clients. And so even if you are super busy right now, which most of you are, was what I'm hearing, and if most of you, and if you are hitting the highest profits maybe that your firm has ever experienced, that's awesome, but why can't you be more profitable? What are those firms doing who are hitting 30%, and why are they so much more profitable than everyone else, than the average? So we're going to explore that. I'm hoping I give you lots of great ideas, lots of things for you to take back and start thinking about and working on in your company. So one of the things I wanted to bring up to you is that there's a metric that many of you are not measuring that I think you really should be measuring. Most of you measure utilization. Most of you look at how long it takes to collect cash. And many of you may be looking at profitability or revenue, but I want you to start looking at the project profit variance. And that is the difference between what you budget on a project and what you end up with. And that's where a lot of this money is getting lost. And we're going to look in detail at where it's going and why. But really looking at this metric is a much more important metric than multiplier. And I'll tell you why. If your company is focused on getting a 3.0 multiplier on a project, but you hit 2.9 instead, how much money is that? On a $10,000 project, it might be a few bucks. On a $1 million project, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So being 0.1 off from your target does not give you the necessary information that you need to make sure that you're focused on getting all the profit out of your projects you're entitled to. And let me just say, I believe that all A&E firms should be entitled to make high profits. And in the past, commoditization has been a huge issue in the industry, and clients pressuring us to lower fees. And that's a terrible thing for the industry. And it's time that the industry fights back and gets the value that they're entitled to. And you deserve that for how hard you work every day. So your project profit variance is a very important metric. And it's showing you that, hey, we did this estimate and this budget, and we expected to get 15% profit, but we only ended up with 10. What happened? Where is that extra 5%? Where is that extra $200,000 that we didn't get? And why are we not getting it? And so I want you to just really focus in on adding the project profit variance to the numbers that you're looking at every month. So we're going to talk about the 9 areas. These are 9 areas that I write about extensively in my book, that we go through in depth in our Find the Lost Dollars business training program that we have for PMs and business leaders, project leaders. And so we're going to dive into those 9 areas, because if all of your people don't understand these 9 areas, and if they're not focused on making sure that each of these 9 areas are humming along effectively and efficiently, then you're going to lose money. You're going to lose little bits of profit everywhere in the business. And I'm going to show you lots and lots of small areas where you may be losing profit, but when you add them all up, it could be a ton of money. I once worked with a firm that had, 5,000 projects a year. Well, they were losing $20 on every project. That's still a lot of money. And so you have to realize that whether you have lots of small projects that are losing a little bit of money, or you have big projects that are losing a little bit of money every week. All of those things can be fixed, and there are solutions to these issues. So I want you to, on your worksheet, we're going to look at each of these 9 areas and determine how your company is doing. So on your worksheet, what you'll see is you'll have numbers 1 to 10. 1 is pretty bad. If you grade your company a 1 in one of these areas, it needs a ton of work. I'll be honest, you're not going to fix it overnight. There's a lot of things that you can do to fix it if you have a 1 or a 4, but hey, you have to start somewhere. Now, you're going to grade yourself from 1 up to 10. 10 would be perfect, right? Now, most companies I work with, they're not perfect, especially when we start out working together. So I doubt you're going to have a high score in every area. So just be as honest as you can be with yourself, with your company, because nobody else is going to see these worksheets. Only you are, and you're going to be able to do something about it. And I'm going to give you lots of ideas of what you can do about it. So, and it's okay to be average. What it means is if you're a 5 or 6, what it really means is there's a ton of money out there to find. And so I actually look at it as an opportunity. Look at every area as an opportunity. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your company's sales practices. This is how you generate leads for business. This is once a lead comes in, how do you manage it? And the reason that many firms lose money in their sales practices is because that you're not winning the opportunities that you should be winning. And maybe you're spending a lot of money going after opportunities you shouldn't even be going after. So let's talk about that further. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to break down each of these 9 areas into people, processes, and systems. So opportunities where you're going to see that your money is getting lost. First of all, your people. If you are using a seller-doer model where a lot of your sales activity is being managed by engineers or architects that are technical in nature and not sales-focused in the majority of the time that they're spending, they're not salespeople. In fact, they may actually abhor the word sales. I had someone recently saying, why do you keep calling it sales? We don't do sales. We do marketing. Well, I'm sorry, when you are working on a proposal and trying to win a job, that is sales. And some firms do a lot better than others. And if other firms are doing it better than your firm, you're going to lose opportunities. The way that you measure your success with opportunities is your win rate. Your win rate is the percentage of projects that you win over what you've gone after. And you can measure it both in dollars and in units. And I think you'll see if you measure it in dollars, your win rate is going to be a lot lower than if you do it in units. And that's because many firms get handoff work or repeat business from their existing clients, and they just lump that in with your win rate. So what I want you to do now is separate your win rate out. Just be competitive bids, okay? Just the competitive work for new business that you're going after. And I think you'll see that you're going to get a much clearer picture about what's going on. And your seller doers aren't salespeople, so they don't have a good foundation for closing business, and they don't know how to manage opportunities. So there's a lot of things that can slip through the cracks, right? And they're basically very often either not using your go, no-go forms, or they're ignoring them. And we're going to talk about that because it's got to be a process that you put in place to make sure that doesn't happen. If your win rate is 35%, which is kind of average for the industry, and if you have public work, it's usually much lower than that. If your win rate is 35%, that means that 65% of the money you're spending going after business, you're losing. And sometimes just a 1 or 2 or 3% increase in your win rate can be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for your company. So it's very much worth improving your lost, how you go after work and how you close business. So process, having a well-defined and documented sales process that everyone in your company is trained to follow and that they're following. It's going to make a huge difference. And very often companies have a go, no go, but they're not using it, or it's ineffective, or they're just ignoring it altogether, which I find is very common. You know, people who are doing sales tend to be very optimistic and they think they can win everything. That's not a good strategy to have. You want to go after the best projects, the profitable projects with good clients, and you want to win them, and you want to win a high percentage of them. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time and money. And then systems. If you don't have a good CRM system, you're not going to know what's working and not working. You're not going to know whether your seller doers are doing the right things. You're not going to be able to see their activities. You're not going to be able to manage your sales process. You're not going to be able to see your pipeline. So your reporting is going to be poor, and you're not going to have a good win rate statistics metrics to use, and you're not going to have a good pipeline measurement. So I want you to give your company a score 1 to 10 on all of these things you see on the screen. How well are we doing at people, process, and systems? And as we get towards the end of this session today, I'm going to give you an idea of how we analyze people, process, and systems in each of these 9 areas. But for now, I just want you to do it as one single score for opportunities, how well you are doing at all of these areas. So go ahead and give yourself a score, your company a score 1 to 10. So the next area we're going to look at is proposal management. Proposal management is the processes that you use to prepare proposals, the coordination and communication of your teams. How cumbersome is it to put together a proposal? How long does it take? How much work is it? And how much time are your people spending doing it? Are they spending a lot of time looking for information, cutting and pasting, you know, reinventing the wheel every time you do a proposal? So what we need to look at when we're looking at people, process, and systems, first of all, on the people side, I see a lot of inconsistency. Every group, every business unit, every office has their own way of doing it. Well, what I find is when everybody has their own way of doing it, then you're not all doing it the best way. So there is a best way to do it. It's called a process. And so if there's not a consistent proposal process and workflows that everybody's following, then you're going to get your people doing things their own way. There's also very often poor time management and coordination of proposal efforts. What I see is you have the marketing people doing this piece, the seller doers writing technical parts. You may have different groups in your company coordinating. And very often there's poor coordination between those individuals. And they get annoyed with each other. I hear that a lot. It's very frustrating. Like, if you hear them saying the words frustrated or we're missing deadlines, then you know that things can be improved quite a bit. And then on the people side, if you're having trouble getting your people to do what you're asking them to do, well, we need you to keep your resumes updated. We need to keep project descriptions. Every time we close out a project, we need you to update the project descriptions, but it's not happening. Then, you know, you're going to have some failures there. On your process side, again, you have to have consistent proposal processes. And then quality control. I hear people say proposals are going out the door without being reviewed. There's typos, there's mistakes, there's things missing. That needs to be looked at, because you're not going to win as many jobs as you could if your proposals have poor quality. And then on the system side, you know, where can you be automating your proposals better? With your qualifications data, your resumes, your project descriptions. Who is managing that, and why isn't it as automated as it can be? So is it in a database? Is it easy to find? Can you search for things easily? And do you have good templates to manage your SF330s and your private proposal formats for your proposals, your boilerplate documents, all of that? Is all of that well managed in a database? Because if it isn't, I promise you, your people are wasting a lot of time looking for things and you end up with millions of duplicate files on your server, and nobody knows which is the latest updated resume or project description. You end up with a lot of junk. So I want you to give your company a score of 1 to 10 on your proposal processes, your people, and your systems. What's working, what's not working. Obviously, you know, I'm sure all of you have some areas that you can work on. Some areas might need more work than others. So give your company a score 1 to 10. 1 is we stink at this and it needs a lot of work, and 10 is we're knocking it out of the park. It's pretty much perfect. So give your company a score between 1 and 10. Third area that we're going to look at is estimating. Now, estimating should not be something your people are doing with blindfolds on. They should have as much information at their fingertips as they can to do an outstanding estimate. The estimate for your project is the foundation of your project. If the estimate is poor, your project is going to have problems. You're going to have misunderstandings with clients. You're going to have project overruns. You're going to have scope creep. You're going to have all kinds of issues down the road. It's worth it to take the time to make sure your estimates are as accurate and as good as they can be, and that people aren't doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So let's talk about what happens that you get a bad estimate. There's guessing. What does that mean, guessing? It means we haven't taken the time to ask our clients the questions that we need to ask our clients. So that we really don't understand what they expect. We don't understand how many meetings they want to have or how many drawing revisions they want to have. We don't understand what their idea of quality is. What do they expect things to look like, or deadlines and deliverables. There's so many questions that go unanswered, and so what ends up happening is we guess. People are untrained to do estimates. There's a lot of people in your company that might not really know the best way to do an estimate. There may be bits and pieces of their experience that's missing, and they don't have a good foundation for knowing how to do an estimate. Maybe they're going too fast. I hear very often that someone will say to me, well, I was on site with a client, they asked me for an extra service, and they said, give me a price right now, we need to move forward, we need you to start on this right away. And instead of saying, wait a minute, I need to slow down and understand what you want, they just go too fast and jump forward and throw a number out, or just even start working on the work without even having a signed agreement from a client. We're going to talk about that in a minute. They underestimate how much time it's really going to take to do the work. Whether it's meetings, travel, how many reviews you're going to have, how many edits to your drawings, to your reports. They underestimate the number of issues that are going to come up, the number of phone calls and conversations and things that are going to happen along the way. And then very often people just kind of bypass getting approvals for their estimates. Now, that might be because your process isn't working. Maybe you don't have an estimating process. So that's a big problem. And there's a lot of things that you can do to improve your estimating process. There's failure to manage your rates. And people end up using the wrong rates. And if they use the wrong rates, if they use the rates from 2 years ago, then your fee estimates are going to be too low. Maybe they're not managing the contract terms because the contract terms aren't part of your process. And then inconsistent quality control process is always an issue. Quality control on your estimates, that is. And then on the system side, are these estimates part of a system? If they're not, you could end up with hundreds of spreadsheets all over your company that have bad rates in them, bad math errors, and you may have invested a lot of money in the last number of years to purchase a great ERP system. There's 4 or 5 of them in the industry that many of our clients are using, but they're not utilizing them to do their estimates. And I think that's very unfortunate because it can save time, it can make it easier for your staff, and it provides better integration all around. So go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10 on your estimating practices, your people, your process, your systems. How's that working for you? Go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10. So the next area we're going to look at is scope creep. And I find that about 100% of companies out there have some form of scope creep. Now, scope creep, many people think scope creep is all due to your clients asking for an extra service and you're afraid to ask them for the money. Now, I will tell you that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem in most firms. Your middle level people, even your business unit leaders in some cases, are not skilled and comfortable asking for money. But that is not the only reason for scope creep. We actually identify at least 10 areas in the project life cycle that causes scope creep, because scope creep can actually be an internal problem in your company, not necessarily just an external issue. It's actually both. And so you really have to look at the whole project life cycle to see where misunderstandings and issues are occurring that are causing scope creep and how you can prevent it by doing lots of things up front, even before your contract is signed, to make sure scope creep doesn't happen in the first place. So scope creep ends up looking like unbilled extra services. That's how we would define it. You can measure scope creep by looking at write-offs. Sometimes your PMs will put it in held time for long, long periods of time. Eventually, it's going to hit write-offs, right? They're eventually going to have to write it off if it sits there for a long, long time and never gets billed. But basically, it's time that people are spending on things outside the scope of the contract, outside the scope of what you told your client or would do, and I believe outside of the number of hours that you thought it was going to take. So on the people side, your people ignore the scope. In other words, they're like, well, you remember we talked about culture? I want to keep the client happy, so I'm going to give them everything they ask for. So they're just ignoring the scope. Sometimes it's because they're afraid to ask for money. They don't know how to ask for money. Very often, your project managers are not communicating with your staff about what's in the scope. So your people don't even know what is included in the scope and what's not included in the scope. Your employees don't check to see if something is in the scope or not. So at that moment, when a client asks for something, you just assume it's in the scope and don't even go and check if it is or not. And the last area is over-delivering. And what that means is you want to please your client, you want to have a beautiful product, you want everything to be amazing on this project, so you just go outside the scope so that you can deliver the most amazing project design or results. And so that's an internal issue. And it revolves back to this culture trap that we call quality is everything, where there's so much focus on quality over budget. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have quality, obviously you have to, but there's a balance between what your client's able to pay and the quality. So that's a big reason that these are all reasons that you have scope creep. Now on the process side, maybe you don't have a good process for understanding your client's requirements. So the communication that's going on in those early stages of the sales process aren't uncovering the real needs of the client or the understanding that you have with your client. Maybe you lack an actual documented process for getting approval for extra services, or maybe it's not, everybody doesn't even know what that process is. Maybe you have poor kickoff meetings. Kickoff meetings are crucial to making sure that your project is successful. And maybe you're not tracking extra services time. And that's a process that has to be established and communicated within your firm in order to make sure that it's easy for your PMs to identify scope creep on the timesheets. And then on the systems side, if you don't set up those items in your system to track extra services, you're not going to know that it's going to make it harder to bill them. And also paying attention to that tracking of that held time and that write-off time. That can be produced by your system and made as a regular metric. But if you're not looking at that, or if it's not reporting that's being generated from your system, you're not going to see it. So go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10 on scope creep. And scope creep, I think on average, many firms lose 3 to 5% of every contract due to scope creep. And that's just cutting into your profits. It means that you're giving away a lot of stuff for free and leaking the profits out of the project. And there's revenue that you could be earning that you're not earning. And that revenue usually goes right to the bottom line, right to the bottom line. So give your company a score of 1 to 10 on scope creep. So next we have project management. And let me just say, your project managers are the heroes of your company. They have so many roles and responsibilities. Most project managers are doing so many things on a daily basis they were never trained to do. And they're expected to know how to do all these things. And just like the picture indicates, they have multiple plates spinning in the air, and they're trying to coordinate all those things and keep them from crashing to the ground. And so when we look at project management, it's not all their fault. In fact, I think most of it isn't their fault, because they're not given the foundation in many cases to be successful. So let's look on the people side. Your PMs never went to college and learned accounting and financial management, so they don't know how to make money on projects. That's not something they've ever been taught. It's something that they need to understand. They hear terminology, they get reports with lots of numbers on them. In many cases, they don't even understand how to read those reports. Another area is that they don't really have the time or ability to monitor their budgets. So maybe you've shown them where a project review is in your system a few times, but you're wondering why they're not going in there all the time and looking at it. It's a very difficult thing for them to keep up with. I find that most firms have weak administrative support for their project managers. There's a lot of areas that you can provide administrative support, either with project accountants and other individuals, to really help your project managers to be successful. And there's low accountability. And I'm going to emphasize accountability a lot today, because accountability puts a lot more structure into how you measure people and how you ensure that they're on track and they're doing the right things. And your high performing people want to be held accountable, and they want to be incentivized to be top performers. If you're not measuring project manager success, if you're not measuring project profitability, then there's usually not a lot of accountability around being a project manager. There's no consequences for being a terrible project manager. And again, as I said, it's not always their fault. There are a lot of things that a company can do to give their project managers the tools and the training and the structure to be more successful. On the process side, I find that many firms lack project management structure. There isn't clear processes for how projects are supposed to be managed. There isn't a lot of structure around project review, reviewing project profitability, understanding what's going well and what's not going well. most PMs do not have good onboarding practices, or most firms don't have good PM or onboarding practices. Even if you're hiring experienced PMs from other firms, they may be bringing dysfunctional practices with them. Or they may come from large firms where there's a ton of structure, and they get into your firm and wonder why you're not doing a whole bunch of different things every month. So there's usually a gap there. And then very often people become PMs without any training, and then they're asked to do a lot of things that they don't know how to do, like interviewing new people, approving timesheets, billing, collections, again, asking clients for change orders. Usually they're promoted because they're great technical people, or they're good with clients, but not often because they know how to effectively manage a project or make money. And if your project profits are not measured on a regular basis, you're not going to have good results. That's one of the key things that you need to be looking at. And then on the systems side, you need to have good structure and systems around project budgeting, monitoring of project success, and reporting. And many people also lack training on those systems. If you've trained somebody one time and then never again, they're going to forget how to use the systems. And then you're going to hear, excuse me, you're going to hear complaints like, our system is cumbersome. If you hear your system is cumbersome, that usually means that they don't know how to use it. And so that's something that you can think about looking at. Why is it they think it's cumbersome? So, and I don't have time to get into that, but as someone who implemented hundreds and hundreds of resource planning systems in Deltek Vision over the years, I can tell you that some firms are spot on with using these tools. And so it isn't the system, it's the structure, it's the process, it's the people, it's the training that leads into those issues. So go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10 on your project management. How well are your people trained? How well are they monitoring and measuring their projects? Do they have great administrative support? Is there accountability? Are you measuring project profitability? Do you have structure and processes in place to keep them on track? And how are your systems? So go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10 on project management. And I believe this is where a lot of money is really getting lost. So next we're going to talk about resource management. Resource management is how well you utilize your resources. Your key metric for this is your utilization rate. I was looking at the metrics again earlier today for the industry, and it's still around 60%. I actually thought it was going to be a lot higher. That's your overall blended rate for all your employees. And I thought it was going to be higher because everyone's so busy, but I think it still takes a lot of time to manage a firm and to do marketing and business development and hiring and all of these other things that you need to do. So it's still not as high as I would have expected. And usually every 1 or 2% increase in utilization is hundreds of thousands of dollars for most firms. You can calculate yours very easily. I'm surprised that it's this low, and there's a lot of things you can do to increase your utilization. Just what you want to make sure is you're maximizing your people's time, and the time that they're spending is adding up to be billable revenue as much as possible, working on billable project revenue and being realized. So on the people side, people don't manage their time very well, right? They're still wasting time looking for information. They're taking too much time to do things, and then you can't bill for it. There's still, I find, a huge communication gap in most companies. The people don't really understand their tasks, how long they should take, how they should be doing them, and clear delegation of work and tasks is lacking very often. Many people, even when they are doing their non-billable time, they still don't manage it very well. They still don't know what the priorities of the firm are. and where they should be spending their time on their non-billable assignments. Because if 40% of your time is going to be non-billable, you might as well make sure that what they are doing in their non-billable time is extremely valuable to the company. You know, it's those important but not urgent items. And I think most people spend their time on non-important, non-urgent items. And then low accountability, again. Many companies measure utilization, but there's not a lot of consequences for not hitting utilization targets. Now, let me just say, if you only focus on utilization, you will get high utilization, but it will tend to lower your project profitability because people will just start charging their time to, you know, fixed price contracts or charging their time onto contracts, and then your projects are going to go over budget. So you have to balance utilization with project profitability, and that's a delicate thing to balance and something that you have to train your project managers to really be paying attention to. So around your processes, poor time management and scheduling processes. Most firms don't have solid scheduling practices. Failure to plan your projects into the future. So being able to look into the future and say, do we have too many people, not enough people? Oh, in 3 months, everybody's not going to have enough work to do. You know, being able to see that and forecast that is really helpful. And then if you're not balancing your utilization with project profitability, you're going to you're going to have problems, I promise you. And then on the systems side, ineffective systems for scheduling. So what are you using for your scheduling? Does everybody have a spreadsheet? Are your schedules not getting updated on a timely basis? Are they meeting every Monday morning and then getting on the phone with different offices saying, hey, you know, we have these 2 guys that don't have any work to do this week. Do you have any work for them? That's ineffective. That is inefficient. And there are much better systems that you could be using to do that. Some of you may have those systems in your office and not using them. And then poor training on systems. Some people I talked to, they didn't even know that their company had a system that they could have been using. Now, very often using a system for scheduling is a scary thing. And so it's something you have to look at as an initiative internally and focus on about how to do it. It's not something, I'm not going to tell you it's really easy to do, but it definitely is doable. And many, many firms are doing it. But I always think there's a lot of room for improvement in this area. Because just as I said, 1% increase in utilization is a huge amount of money. So go ahead and give your company a score 1 to 10 on your resource management and your scheduling practices and your people practices. Go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10. So the next thing we're going to talk about is your invoicing cycle and your cash flow. Now, I do find that most firms are a little stronger in this area. I think it's something that, you know, if you have a strong accounting department, maybe they've been working on a lot. So I would expect your scores to be a little higher in this area, but only you know that at this point. So let's talk about poor cash flow. If you have poor cash flow, that means that the number of days that it takes for you to collect from your clients gets longer and longer. Your clients aren't paying you very fast. And there's so many reasons why this can happen. Believe it or not, a lot of it starts with your timesheets. So if your employees aren't getting their timesheets done on time and accurately, that is going to affect your cash flow. If they're not accurate, you're going to have a lot of corrections at the end of every month, and that's going to delay your billing cycle. Or you have the risk of invoices going out the door wrong, and then your client will contest the invoice and get another extra 30 or 60 days to pay you. Plus, that causes your clients not to trust you very much if you make mistakes. So poor compliance with timesheet policies, lack of collection responsibilities and accountability around collections. Again, your people may not like asking for money, and that's something you have to do. And then low accountability around timeliness and accuracy of timesheets. So accountability in itself, your company's failure to enforce your policies. On the process side, if your employees are not doing their timesheets every day, then they're not accurate. I promise you. And tell me, if any of you can tell me what you did last Wednesday in 15-minute 15-minute increments accurately, I would be shocked. And I'll bet you know that you can't do that. No, nobody can. But that's what your employees are doing every week. They're sitting down at the end of the week or on Monday morning and trying to figure out what they did last week. And it's not accurate. So lack of daily timesheet policies, slow billing practices. If it's taking you a week, 2 weeks to get your bills out the door, that is just too long. That's delaying your payment processes. Ineffective contract payment terms, not having good terms with your clients, and poor collection practices. And those practices can definitely be improved in most companies. I see a dramatic room for improvement. And then on the system side, again, if you can put some systems and automation practices into place to ensure that timesheets are done daily and accurate, and have better accounts receivable reporting that alerts you maybe when clients get over a certain number of days overdue and things like that, that can really help improve your cash flow. So go ahead and score your company 1 to 10 on invoice cycle and cash flow across your company. And that really does need to include your timesheet practices. That's a major part of it. So number 8 is non-integrated systems. Hopefully none of you, your server room looks like the picture on the screen. So what's going on with these non-integrated systems? So people in your company are wasting time because they can't find what they're looking for, or because they are having to enter data more than one time in more than one place. Redundant data entry is a big problem. It's usually caused by you have multiple systems and none of them talk to each other. So they have to go over here to find this client information and over there to find that client information and over here to find the project descriptions and over here to find the project budget and over here to find clients' addresses, and it's just all over the place, right? On the people side, besides the fact that they're wasting all that time, they're not keeping things updated, right? They're not updating their resumes. They're not updating project descriptions. They're not updating CRM information with opportunity tracking. They're bypassing your systems by using spreadsheets. Now, people always say to me, what's wrong with spreadsheets? And I'll tell you what's wrong with spreadsheets. Everybody has their own. You could have 10 people in your company doing the same spreadsheet. That is not efficient. That's not effective. They're wasting time. Every minute of their time they're wasting is costing you money. So if you're letting them do spreadsheets for project reporting, for tracking client information, for budgeting, for all these things, that is not the most effective way to be running your business. Lack of training. When you have non-integrated systems and people aren't even trained on all the different applications that you have, you're going to run into problems. And then again, accountability is always a huge problem. You're not enforcing your IT practices the way that you had designed them to be. On the process side, lack of structure around systems, how your employees are supposed to use your systems, and how you track all of that is very important. Having insufficient disaster recovery, that includes cyber, backups, what data is in the cloud, all of that. And having a lack of an IT strategy. I see many companies still doing things the way they did 10 years ago with their IT. And if you're not looking every single year at how to massively utilize technology to improve your business, then other companies are going to get ahead of you in technology and innovation. And so your IT person should not be a person that they're calling when their computer doesn't work. Your IT person needs to be somebody who's up on the latest technology and strategy for making sure that your firm is in the leading edge. And many of you may not want to be in the leading edge, and that's okay, but don't be at the end of the edge. Don't be 10 years out. Even 5 years out these days is too long. Redundant data sources, your systems, you need to be looking at your systems. What are all the applications we have? How do they talk to each other? Are they kept up to date? Are we keeping them updated on a regular basis? Do they need to be in the cloud? You know, what's going on there? And so when you look at your people, process, and systems all tied together here, they need to be working together. And so give your company a score 1 to 10. Where are you on that continuum? 1 being we're still doing things the way we did 10 years ago, and we don't enforce any of our practices. And 10 would be, you know, we're on the bleeding edge, and we're knocking it out of the park on our IT systems. So give your company a score 1 to 10 on systems. And then our last of our 9 areas is client relationships. If you lose just 1 client these days, it costs 6 times more to get a new client than to keep an old client. This is all about how you treat your clients. This is all about how well you know your clients. This is about how well you intentionally retain your clients. So if we think about losing a good client, now I'm not talking about losing a bad client. Go ahead and lose all your bad clients. I'm a big proponent of firing bad clients. On the people side, there's a lot of things your people could be doing to ensure you don't lose a good client. But are they treating all your clients the same? That doesn't make sense. You know, if you look across all your clients, probably 20% of them are delivering 80% of your profits. So you shouldn't be treating them all the same. And you need to understand your 80-20. They don't meet with your clients often enough. You know, in today's world with texting and emailing, it's becoming more impersonal. How often are your people getting out on the road, going out and meeting with your clients face to face? You cannot replace those relationships. Your employees lack communication skills, and soft skills are in dire need these days in the A&E industry. And how, you know, how does that affect your client relationships? Lack of client service training. The best and biggest, you know, Fortune 500 companies in the world, they have client or customer service departments. They have client service structure, and everybody's trained on how to treat clients. And I think if you look across your firm at all of your different divisions and offices and groups, you're going to see a lack of consistency. Some people are doing it better than others. Is that what you want? And then turnover. If somebody leaves your firm, what are you doing to ensure that those client relationships still exist and that you capture all that knowledge that that person had about the clients? On the process side, you have to have an intentional focus on your clients. The client experience, the client retention strategy for your top 10 or 20 clients is critical. Maybe you're not doing enough analysis of what's going on with your clients. And then insufficient client relationship documentation. You need to have a process for tracking information and knowledge about your clients so that if you do have someone who leaves, they're not taking everything with them. On the system side, poor CRM systems, lack of knowledge management, and lack of integration. And all of these things are going to affect your client relationships. So give your company a score 1 to 10 on how well you are intentionally focused on retaining your best clients so you don't lose a good client. And there's a lot of lost dollars if you lose a good client, a lot. So the last area you'll notice on your worksheet, there's a 10th category, and that category is leadership. And what this is for is I want you to grade your company 1 to 10 on how committed your company is to solving these issues, in finding lost dollars, and making your company as effective as possible so that you maximize every dollar of profit that you are entitled to earn. So I want you to score your company 1 to 10 on leadership. Let me just say to you, if leadership is a low score or average score for you, that is actually the first thing that you need to work on. Because until your leadership gets on the same page and is committed to finding lost dollars, you're not going to find any lost dollars. The effort and the focus and the commitment, it's got to be there in order to solve all of these things that we've been talking about today. And when we talk to clients, a prospective client, about helping them find lost dollars, that's the first thing that we want to understand is, Is your leadership team on board? And if it isn't, that's where we start. We start focusing on how to get the leadership team on board. So go ahead and give your company a score of 1 to 10 on leadership. So now what I'd like you to do is add up your scores. Go ahead and add up your scores. Many of you are numbers focused anyway, so you're probably already done that. Add up your scores. And so your score out of 100, what is your score? If your score is 10 to 25, I promise you there is so much money to find. You should be at least able to double or triple your profits in 1 year or less. That's been our experience when we work with firms that have that kind of score. 26 to 50 are still really on the low end, and there's still a lot of money to find. Maybe you can double your profits. 51 to 75, there's still a good deal of money to find. You're probably in the, I'd say you're in the average category. 76 to 90 or above average, there's still money to find, and you hopefully have a better idea where, but 76 to 90. If any of you are 91 to 100, I want you to promise me that you will let me know. I'd really like to hear from you. In all the years I've been doing this, I've only had one firm that told me they were 91 to 100. Our goal is to make every one of our clients, we call those a gold star company. A gold star company who is the one that solved all these things. And their profitability, your profitability should be in the 30 percentile area if you've solved all of the problems that we work on with our clients. So if you're a gold star company, let me know. I'd really, really like to hear from you and know about whether you're a gold star company. Now, there's one more thing on your worksheet. I want you to be action focused, right? Write down 3 things that you learned today that you want to focus on, and write down just one thing you're going to work on and what you're going to do about it. What are you going to do? Are you going to go sit down with your leadership team, share your worksheet with them, and talk to them about how much money you could be making? You know, that's a great next step. Maybe you already know what you want to do, but let me give you an idea. I promised you at the beginning I would give you just a 1-minute explanation of what we do and how we do it. These are still things you can do yourself, but we believe we have found the perfect way to do it. We have a Find the Lost Dollars program where we guarantee that you will increase your profit. Usually we see a guaranteed increase in profit in anywhere as little as 10 weeks to a year. It's really 3 simple steps. First, we look at what's going on in your business so we can find out where the dollars are leaking. Second of all, we have a structured training program that engages your middle and upper level teams of people, technical staff, PMs, business unit leaders, and even your emerging leaders, to teach them how to make more money and get them working in your company, changing their behavior and focused on how to find the lost dollars in every little thing they do every single day, because people are 1/3 or more of your issue. And then number 3, we use all the knowledge we've gained throughout that process to implement better business practices. And our team helps hold you accountable and keeps moving forward to ensure that you execute and get those most important things done to increase your profits. And find all those lost dollars. Even if you did report that your profit is at 15%, why shouldn't it be 20%? What's keeping you from hitting those upper limits of what the best companies in the industry are? And we find when we go through this 3-step program with our clients, you're going to be focused on getting better clients, higher fees. Your employees will perform better. They're going to behave differently. They're going to think differently and act differently. And they're going to be better leaders going forward. Your profits will definitely increase, and we will measure it. You will have more accountable staff, and we will increase your sales. So those are all great things. First of all, you got to figure out where those profits are leaking. That's our step 1. We have an automated tool to do that, and we actually engage your staff to help figure out how to do that in 9 areas of the business, and we break it down into much more detail of people, process, and systems. We look at all the best practices that you should be doing and where you're strong, which is green, mediocre, which is yellow, and weak, which is red. And then we have a 10-week program that you put groups of people through. It's a combination of online and group discussions focused on how to make your company the best company it can be. We help transform your teams of people, and we get all of your people engaged to help you find lost dollars. This isn't something just the leadership team needs to do. It's something everyone in your company can learn to do. So if you think this is something you might be interested in, we'd like to know if you're a good fit. And we schedule a 15-minute call just to have a quick understanding of what's going on in your firm. And then we'll let you know whether we think we should have a further conversation or not. And you can decide whether you want to have a further conversation with us or not to determine if the Find the Lost Dollars program is a good program for you. And if it's not, we'll give you some ideas what we think you should be doing. Leanne is going to put a link in the chat box with a link that you can use to schedule the 15-minute call. And she's also going to be sending out an email later on today or maybe by tomorrow morning that's going to have the slides from today that you can share with your team. It's going to have a link or the PDF for the workbook, the worksheet. It's going to have the recording of today's session, as well as that link to schedule a 15-minute call with us if you're not able to do it right now. Well, we would really love to see whether we can help you or not. And the reason that we are able to have a full money back guarantee on our program is because we only work with clients that we are 100% confident that we can massively increase your profits. And if we don't think we can, we'll let you know that. So please schedule a call with us. And just remember that in a year, I know how busy all of you are. You're pulling your hair out and you think that your people don't have time for anything more, but they're wasting hours and hours of time every day by doing things inefficiently. And we're going to get that time back for them. They're actually going to have more time each week after they learn how to be more effective at their jobs. So let us know if that's something you want to learn more about. We're excited to talk with you about it. And so I'm just going to look. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If any of you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you. If you're not really sure how any of this works, hey, if you would like to share your worksheet with me and get some feedback, I'm happy to do that as well. Leanne and I are both very adept at reading those worksheets and figuring out what your plan should be. So if you want us to have a look at it, we're happy to do that. If you have any questions about it, happy to talk with you further. So thank you so much for your time today. We went a few minutes over and I appreciate you hanging out with us. And I look forward to talking with many of you again. Thanks so much for your time and have a wonderful holiday. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.